Camera number 409 is the Minolta XTsi Maxxum. It's a camera that has a lot of functionality, released around about the end of the 1990s, so just as the digital era was coming in. And I've managed to pick this camera up from a local car boot for the princely sum of £8, including the lens. So wasn't hoping for too much, because of course you never can tell until you put the battery in, because all the functions of the camera need battery power, and the battery is housed in this compartment, which we'll go and get a coin to undo. So here's the coin, and just simply rotate, and then it houses two CR2 batteries with the positive terminal pointing out of the camera, and then push. Quite a springy door, so be careful, because these are inclined to break, being of plastic, and indeed the whole camera is very heavily plastic, but which of course makes it very light and portable. Maybe not pocketable, but certainly very light. So once we got a battery in, I was pleased that when I turned the camera on, which we do on the lock button here at the back, the camera burst into life, and indeed all the functions seem to work. So very well spent £8. Or is it? Well, we'll find out when we look at the images at the end. But in the meantime, we'll go through some of the functions of the camera. As I said, there's quite a lot here. I can't cover them all in detail, but I'll do my best. So to take the lens off, the lens release is just here. We press that in and rotate. As I say, the lens that came with this camera was the 35 to 80, so sort of kit lens, and f4 to 5.6, depending on the focal point. It does include a very useful 1.3 foot macro. So there we go. Looking at the camera then, we have obviously the contacts that contact with the lens. And on the bottom here we have the toggle button for autofocus or manual focus. And then above the lens release button we have the usual suspects, the exposure compensation button, which also is used when we're in manual mode for, I believe it's aperture. And then the flash button, which releases the flash normally, but the camera isn't on, so it won't. Okay, going to the other side, we have our self-timer light. We have the two strips. That one of the features of this camera that it has eye start, which means that as soon as we hold the camera, make contact here, and our eye is up against the viewfinder, the two little sensors there sense that an eye is there and starts the camera up, of course, when it's turned on, and will start to focus and meter. That functionality can be turned off, but we'll come back to that later on. We then have what we could call our command dial, which we can rotate to get some of the functionality of the camera, and then our shutter button. And then one of the nice features of the camera is that it has a panoramic mode, which is basically a blind that goes against the film. Let's just open the camera back and we can show that. So that's the standard mode, and then if we press the button, or move the slider switch, sorry, that pops the blind up, and then we get just this thin panoramic mode. It could be done in post, but quite nice to have that functionality if we don't want to do that. We want to do it there in camera, because of course it can be turned off as we wish, which is nice. Just while we're on the bottom here, the eye control is turn on and offable with that switch. And then we have our mid-roll rewind, or indeed the rewind button. We can configure the camera not to rewind the film as soon as it finishes, and just use that button instead. The camera came with this data back, and the data back is powered by this very handily. The owner put the button CR2025 button battery for that particular functionality. I won't be using that because I don't know that the date goes up to, it might do, I don't know. So when we close the back, putting our film in, the film will be advanced to the first frame, and any photograph taken subsequently will be advanced automatically. To put the lens back on, we just line up the two red dots and then rotate, and we're good to go. So I mentioned the on and offable switch, and that's that one there. Quite stiff, this. I'm not sure whether that's normal or whether it's just that where the camera has been stored. I'm not sure. So we have this camera obviously was designed, I suppose, with the maybe advanced amateur perhaps in mind, because we have our basic modes, and then we have custom modes. So the basic modes are here on the top, which we can toggle through with the pressing of the button here. So we've got program mode, where the camera makes all the decisions, decides whether the flash is required. That can be employed there. If we press the switch again, we go into portrait mode, then we go into landscape mode, macro mode, sports mode, and nighttime portrait, which will do fill-in flash, which is nice. If at any time we want to go back to program mode, we can just press the button, and then that will take us back to program mode. The button below is the self timer and the single frame or continuous frame. We can toggle those. Continuous frame is basically 2 frames a second. So shutter button, and as I say, command dial. We then have a spot metering button, which allows us to quickly select the central of the 3 focus points, but they're actually metering. That doesn't affect the focusing at all. So this is just selecting the metering mode for the central point, and then we can lock that in and then recompose our picture if we like, if our subject isn't in the middle. We also can use this button to employ slow sync as well with spot metering, which is a nice inclusion there. Regarding focusing mode, I suppose really this button could be regarded as back button focusing, which is rather nice. I'm a great fan of that. We can select or press that button and select the central point, or we can choose one of the 2 other points, because I say there's only 3 for focusing. So that's nice to have that back button focusing. Very nice. Okay, going to the other side now, we come into the sort of creative modes. So let's just run through some of those. Let's go for the first one, the custom function. There's about 10 different functions. I'll try and produce a little slide that I'll put in set this section of the video, and we can control quite a number of different functions of the camera. One that I particularly like is leaving the film tip out. We can select that, or we can go through any of the other functions, which hopefully you'll see in the little slide which I've included here. I can't include all of them, but basically you can toggle through yes or no, or how it functions particularly. So there's the custom functions. If we rotate, now to just while we're on the custom functions, to select, so for example I've actually got number 3 here, which is the film tip, and to turn that on you have to press the function button in the middle of this button as well, and then use the command dial to select it. So a little bit cumbersome, but you know, it gets there eventually. Moving on, ISO, we can select our ISO even though it has DX coding in the camera. We can override that, which is very nice. And again, you can select by means of the custom function for the previous selection of ISO to be employed in the next role or next succession of roles. So it's like a DX memory, I think it was called, which is very nice. Red eye reduction is the next one, and then we have our other program modes, our advanced program modes, which again we have to press the function button down and scroll through them. So we have program, we have aperture priority, shutter priority, and manual, which is manual metered mode. Looking through the viewfinder in manual meter mode, that's quite a mouthful. The camera basically tells us whether we have plus or minus, have we overexposed or underexposed. That's the only indication you get. In the other modes, aperture and shutter and program, get a full readout on the left hand side here through the viewfinder of the particular point that you focused on, the shutter speed, the aperture, whether flash is being used, all of the useful information. So we can really immerse ourselves looking through the viewfinder. And because the camera is so light, that's a real bonus, that I think personally. It really does speak in favour of the camera. Next function, we have multiple exposure. So we can select, again, we select that with our wheel. There we go, multiple exposure. The only thing is that the camera will assume it's taking one photograph, so you have to do the mental maths as to perhaps a little bit of exposure compensation, maybe a half a stop between exposures, or more if we're doing more than one or two exposures. We can also, with this button, select bracketing. There's a set of 3 images that will be taken in succession, the correct and over and under. I don't think we can change that, unfortunately. And then one little feature that I don't often see in these kinds of cameras is wireless flash control. Yes, wireless flash control. Putting that on, and basically we have to use one of Minolta's proprietary flashes. I think it's 3,500 and something. And basically you put it on, you then press the function button when you've selected WL, and then we have to turn it on, and that kind of syncs the flash to the camera. We can then take the flash off, put it anywhere we like, and then we can use the flash of the camera to set the other unit, if you like, slave unit, off. I'm not sure, actually, I'm not a great user of flash, whether this flash would work as well, or whether you've actually given all control over to the other flash in this particular mode. Maybe somebody could correct me there. Okay, I think that's all the functions there. Done all those ones. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's it. As I say, very light camera. I really enjoyed going out with this, and I'm very interested to see how the images come out. Certainly the negatives look okay, but they've been scanning in the background, so if you've heard some sort of noise, that's what's going on. So, is it any good? Well, I think the camera is I really enjoyed it. £8, you can't go wrong, can you, really? Or can you? Well, you can make the decision. But in the meantime, this is camera number 409.